Hello, Professor. My name is Carlos, and today I'm going to talk to you about the Diego Rivera Dream of a Sunday Afternoon in Alameda Park. So, this mural was painted by Diego Rivera. Uh, Diego Rivera painted this in 1947. The mural alone, the actual size of it is 4.8 meters times 15 meters. It was originally painted for the Hotel del Pardo in Mexico City. Um, so Diego Rivera's painting right here. Um, it, um, it, um, it displays three different eras of Mexican history. So like right here you have Hernán Cortez. Right here somewhere in the middle you have the dictator Mexico of Porfirio Diaz, and then you got the Mexican Revolution in 1910. So we're gonna start with Hernán Cortez. Hernán Cortez was born in 1485. He is from Spain. Um, Hernán Cortez traveled to Tenochtitlan from 1519 to 1521. But before he actually arrived to Tenochtitlan, Mexico, he illegally assembled a little over 600 men with 11 ships from Cuba, and they set sail to Mexico. But most of his men weren't necessarily soldiers of Spain because this was an unofficial trip. The Spanish king did not know this was happening. So most of these men were like either criminals, people that liked adventure, or just people that just wanted to, start a new life and just seek fortune. But yeah, so like I said, they were in Tenochtitlan from 1519 to 1521. A lot of people like to think of Hernan Cortez as a adventurer, thrill seeker, somebody that just likes to travel the world just cause. No, not necessarily. That's not necessarily what it was. He was actually a businessman. He was an investor. So this voyage, he spent 7,000 ducats of his own money into this voyage, and a lot of people paid him to take a part of this voyage, and they set sail to Tenochtitlan, which paid off. So when they arrived to Mexico, Tenochtitlan, they saw the Mexica with lots and lots of gold. They wanted that gold. They wanted lots of it. So they did what any other fucking, colonizer white man would do. And, they just took whatever they wanted. They killed them. They took their stuff. And, yeah, they did what they did. But the downfall of Tenochtitlan was for many reasons alone. For many reasons. So the superior weapons that the Mexicans, that the Spanish had. So they had like guns, they had swords, they had cannons, they had horses, they had huge dogs that the Spanish used to kill the Mexica. And apart from that, the Mexica had a lot of enemies, so the Spanish took advantage. So the Spanish recruited roughly like I would like to say over 100,000 from Tlaxcala, and they used them to take down the Mexica. But apart from the Spanish fighting and the Tlaxcala fighting, one of the main reasons why the Mexica fell through was because they weren't immune to a disease called smallpox. Smallpox initially destroyed their population by a total of 40%. So yeah, that's Hernan Cortez. Now we are going to talk about Jose Posada. Jose Posada was born on February 2nd, 1952, and died on January 20th of 1913. He was born in Aguascalientes, in Mexico, and then he later died in Mexico City. He was one of the artists back in the days that made skulls, aka calaveras, popular. So now, when you think of Dia de los Muertos or you think of any type of graphic design or anything, he was what made it happen. He was the one that made it popular. So one of his most famous art pieces was La Calavera de Catrina. Now we're gonna talk about um, the art piece alone. The art piece La Catrina, which was this one right here. La Catrina was painted by, Jose Posada, like I stated, in 1913. The painting resembled the Mexican rich elite. So as you can tell, she's not painted. Well, yeah, she's painted. She's dressed really well. Nice white little dress with like, feathers and everything. So So apparently he made this painting to resemble or to critique or criticize the rich snobby elite from Mexico. You can actually see her right here. Um, she is wearing what was it? A feather from Mesoamerican serpent, the god of I'm gonna butcher the name Quetzalcoatl, Cole, around her neck. In that same mural, you can see young Diego Rivera, and you see Rivera holding hands with Posada. So Catina's holding their hands right there in the middle. Now we're gonna talk about Frida. Frida is this young lady right here. Where is she? Right there. Sorry. So Frida was born on June 6th of 1907 and died in July 13th of 1954. Um, Fun fact: she was actually born to Diego Rivera. They were married in 1929. Um, so one of her most famous art pieces are the 1926 self-portrait of Frida alone. The two Fridas, and another self-portrait of herself wearing a red velvet dress. In the mural alone of Diego Rivera's, you can see Posada and Frida in a scene behind young Diego Rivera. Let's see, where is it? Right there. So Frida is holding Diego Rivera's shoulder, and in the other hand, as you can like kind of see right there, she's holding a yin yang like little artifact, little charm, whatever. So yin yang, or sorry, so that was used as a metaphor. So that basically like it meant as the complexity of the relationship with Frida and Diego Rivera, because Diego Rivera were married and then they split and they got back together, so they had a really complicated relationship. Now we're gonna talk about young Diego Rivera. The young Diego Rivera is right there next to Katrina. So young Diego Rivera was born on December 8th of 1886 in Guanajuato, Mexico. Early in his childhood, he took a peak of interest in art like really early, and like by the time he was 8, he started going to school for art. I believe he studied at the San Carlos Academy of Fine Arts in Mexico City, and one of his most earliest influences was ironically Jose Posada for Diego Rivera. Now, we're going to talk about Benito Juarez. Um, so, according to Walter from Britannia, the website, Benito Juarez was the president of Mexico from 1861 all the way to 1872. He was born in March 21st, 1800, and he died in July 18 of 1872. Benito Juarez started his education in 1821 in a church in Oaxaca in the Institute of Art and Science, and finally in 1831 he received his degree in law. So conservatives controlled Mexico in 1843, and Benito Juarez was more of a liberal, left-wing type of person. So he got exiled. And he fled the country. So essentially, later in 1853, he returned to Mexico when the Mexicans controlled Mexico. The liberals, and he joined the administration of Juan Alvarez as Minister of Justice, and then Congress later appointed him as Supreme Court. And with that, role, he became the vice president of Mexico. And then finally, in 1801, he became the president. But during his presidency, Benito Juarez had a lot of problems. So during his presidency, one, that he had like invaders in his damn country. They had the French, they had the Spanish, and they had the Archduke Maximilio. Um, Mexico did what they did. Like eventually, the Spanish found out that no, the Archduke was there, so they just dipped. They just left. They were just, I guess, they were scared. The French, on May 5th, they had the Batalla of Puebla. And they, that was, you already know how that ended. They got humiliated and Mexico won. So eventually they ended up leaving. But also they had money problems. So the reason why those people, Maximilio, the Archduke, they wanted to rule Mexico, but Mexico owed money to Spain and French, and they wanted the money, but they had problems with money. And apart from that, Benito Juarez had like trust issues with Congress. Not that he had trust issues with them, but it was more like Congress didn't trust him as president of Mexico, which is a big problem because if you're president of Mexico, you have to have trust issue. You have to have trust with your Congress. You have to all get along. So yeah, that's Benito Juarez. Excuse me. And now we are gonna talk about Ricardo Flores. Ricardo Flores was an anarchist. Today's anarchists resemble a lot of red and black. So like Antifa, that's anarchy as of today. It kind of started from back then in Mexico. So Ricardo Flores was born on September 16, 1803, and later he died on October 22nd, 1922. While he was studying for his law degree, he became a radical activist. In 1892, he was arrested for protesting against the re-election of the dictator from Mexico, the president of Porfirio Diaz. He was arrested like many, many times later. I think after his third arrest, he fled the country and he left to the United States of America. And then he was also one of the founders of the I think it's a publication of the Regeneración in 1900. And then in 1905, he started this party called Partido Libre Mexicano. But then later on down those years, he violated a bunch of like acts. I think he violated the 1917 act of what was it? I believe the Trading with the Enemy Act of 1917, and then later in 1918, he violated the act of I'm gonna butcher this. I think you pronounce it Espinal Act of 1918. And then, because all of his radical political thinking, a lot of people didn't like his ideas. I think he was too ahead of his time because, it was, in those times, it was very new, complex ideas that a lot of people just wouldn't understand. So eventually he was sentenced to 18 years to prison. He served 8 years of those 18 years, but in 1922 he sadly died. So yeah, that's Ricardo Flores, the anarchist of Mexico. And now we're going to talk about Francisco Madero. According to biography.com, Francisco Madero was born in October 30th of 1873 in Paras, Mexico, and then he died. Oh, sorry. He came from a really rich, wealthy family. He studied in many parts of the country. He started in the U.S., he studied in Mexico, and then he started in parts of Europe. He studied in Paris. Francisco Madero was the one that started the re-election part. The anti-re-election party, because of he found out that that dictator from Mexico that ran Mexico from 1876 all to 1910. He found out that in 1910 he was gonna run for Mexico again in 1910. So he started that party, but like I said, Diaz ran Mexico in 1876 to 1910. He ran Mexico because he just did shady things. Um, from my understanding, I assumed he murdered people to like he murdered anybody in his any opposition. He murdered them, like anybody that wanted to like dethrone him from the presidency. Um, bribe people, did what he could to stay in power. He was favored by the rich elite of Mexico. He took land from like poor peasants, and from 1876 out to 1910. That's a long time, and I'm pretty sure I would be frustrated too, having some really crappy Mexican president that just didn't really care about the poor working class. He only cared about the rich class. You know what I mean? So with that being said, people were just tired. They were frustrated, and because of that, in 1910, that led to the Mexican Revolution, which is you see right here, thanks to essentially because of Francisco Madera. Francisco Madera during the Mexican Revolution in 1910, he actually won the election and became president of Mexico in 1910. But unfortunately, he did not last too long. 3 years later, he was assassinated, and that was the end of Francisco Madera. So, yeah, this is Diego Rivera's mural, and yeah, thank you, Professor.